All right, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's session for our diverse views at MIT Sloan. My name is Terrell Williams, and I serve as the Associate Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm excited about tonight's panel and this discussion that we're going to have with this dynamic group of Sloanies. Morgan, will you be able to kick us off?
Happy to. So much to say. I'm so happy to be here. I think the short story is I'm originally from Texas. I will always claim Texas, but I've lived many places. So those of you who are coming from not the East Coast, I'm happy to share that perspective as well. Right before Sloan, I was in the greater New York area. So that's kind of where I ended up moving from when I got to Massachusetts. I was a part of the Sloan Fellows class of 2023. I graduated last year, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about what that journey for me was like as one of, I guess, well, the only executive program representation here, but my pivot had a lot to do with focusing on operations, infrastructure on the real estate side, wanting to switch industries into the automotive sector and focus on that infrastructure side. And then kind of shift out of the mode that I had been in, kind of starting up operations teams to scaling up operations. So that was kind of my focus while I was on campus. Am I missing anything, Terrell? Is there anything
Nope.
else I'm going to cover?
No,
Okay.
no, you're good.
Happy to get into the questions then.
Thank you. Thank you. Kaya, would you kick us off next?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaya Thomas. I graduated from the Leader from Global Operations program last year, and I got my MBA and my master's in civil and environmental engineering. Before Sloan, I was a software engineer, lived out in the Bay Area. I'm originally from New York, though, so all the East Coasters are presenting. And after Sloan, when I graduated, I worked as a consultant for a year, and now I'm a senior solutions engineer at a startup based in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Thank you. And then Namni, can you wrap us up?
Happy to. So, hey everyone, good evening. My name is Namdi. I am originally from Lagos, Nigeria. Most recently, before Sloan, I lived in Houston, Texas. So, unlike Morgan, I've lived all over the place. So I was an engineer I have a background in engineering. Ultimately, decided I wanted to do a career switch, and so attended the Sloan program. I was a MBA class of 2022. And now I'm an equity research associate at Putnam Investment. So I did a total career change. I'm in finance now. So happy to get into the questions.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll actually be interim moderator for the time being, but I will be able to pivot as we do well here at Sloan. So the first question I have for our panelists tonight is, could you just kind of give us a glimpse into your thought process of why you chose Sloan as your particular degree option for the LGO program, Sloan Fellows, and our MBA programs, respectively?
Do you want us to make up the order? Do you care about the order?
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can kick us off, Morgan.
Okay, happy to. So very, very, very long journey. About 4 years after undergrad, I'd been in the workforce. I was thinking kind of what did I want to do next? And it was clear to me because I was already working in kind of the gray space of starting up an operations team in healthcare that I wanted to have the training that comes with the business degree. And as soon as I knew that, I knew that I wanted to go to Sloan or not go to business school at all. I was very focused on Sloan. I mean, in a kind of weird way. I visited probably over 4 times. I applied to the diversity weekend and ended up staying with a host. I knew nearly everybody in the admissions office. And it kind of was me checking in every year, and they were like, "Are you going to apply?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready yet. I don't think I'm ready yet." And fast forward about 4.5 roles later, I think COVID happened, and I kind of sat with this. This is a dream. Am I still serious about this dream? I decided yes, right, that MIT was the place for me, and so I just wanted to see if they felt the same way, and so I applied, and then ended up matriculating just after I'll say the core COVID season. So starting in the fall of 2022 is when I entered. I guess I'll just say 2 things on the why Sloan. I felt very strongly about the way that Sloan trains its students, and probably equally as strong about like the type of student that is at MIT at large, right? And so I think if you haven't heard it already, it is very much true that this is a place of kind of silent doers. And I felt like that was in line with who I am. I love tackling kind of the messy problems with very talented people, and have just so much excitement when I'm with those kinds of people. And so I think to find people that are kind of in their own lanes, just achieving really phenomenal things and wanting to collaborate with them, and feeling like it could not only be true in my cohort across Sloan, but also across MIT, felt like, how could I not take advantage of this opportunity, right? So as soon as I was admitted, I knew it was a go. I think the other thing that became apparent for me over time is, obviously when I was first considering this path, 4 years out of undergrad looks very different from 14 years later, right? So I think it ended up working out perfectly for me. I think I knew much more about where I wanted to go. Professionally, I was much more assured of myself. And I think business school then was more of like a gut check that, you know, because I had never had the formal training, was I, where did I line up, right? Like, is this kind of a self-assessment to come in back to school and see like, you know, where do I need to kind of fine tune things? What are my strengths? Where do I lean in? And so the Sloan Fellow MBA ended up being perfect for that, right? Because it's kind of the NBA, but it's fast tracked. It's with it's like without like the internship summer, right? You're basically taking a very similar set of courses, and the conversation for me was at the perfect level, right? So like for people who, you know, maybe coming from a non-finance backgrounds, got to take finance with people that are CFOs, right? Or people as myself, an operator, like I got to help people that are highly technical, right? In thinking about how do you do ops management. And so loved that the conversation was at that level. And I also am very partial to the faculty that we had leading us, guiding us, and happy to talk more about that, because that was actually my greatest networking tool, was the faculty. So.
Thank you for sharing, Morgan. So, Kai, I want to pass it over to you because I know LGO is a very niche program, given the fact that it's a dual degree with our School of Engineering. So, could you give our audience a glimpse into your thought process of, you know, why you felt that LGO was a great fit for you?
Definitely. So as a software engineer, I think I was a little bit intimidated by MBA programs, to be honest. Because I didn't have that business background. And so when I was looking into programs, I only really looked at dual degree programs that combined engineering and business, because I felt like that was more of a comfort zone for me because I had that technical background. I think when I looked at different programs, the reason why the LGO program stood out to me so much was because MIT was the first institution to have a program like this, to have a business master's and engineering master program combined. And because of that, it has the kind of most large alumni network of these type of folks. And so for me, I think that was one of the most important thing, that wherever I went had a robust alumni network, and an alumni network that was not only robust, but that was actively kind of engaged and wanted to still like talk to students, help students, give back. And I saw that in the LGO program, that there was a lot of willingness to still be engaged with the program and still be engaged with students and help. And that to me, I think was a differentiator and why I was interested in joining LGO.
Thank you, Kaya. And Namdi, could you wrap us up as it pertains to your experience, you know, within the pre-MBA phase, and, you know, what stuck out to you about Sloan?
Of course. So first off, I mentioned that I have an engineering background, and one engineer doesn't look into MIT, right? But all jokes aside, though, what the main thing for me that stuck out to me was I mentioned I am Nigerian, and so MIT's work in Africa, and also just the the alumni network and the reach of MIT was what really pulled me in. And then once I started to get to know the school, though, and get to know like, you know, people who went there, and familiarize myself with the program, the one thing that also stuck out to me was the teamwork. So MIT focuses heavily on teamwork. So you will hardly ever do anything by yourself. You're most likely going to be in a team working on different projects, different problems, very, very tough creative problems. And so I think Morgan mentioned this earlier, just meeting very low ego people who are incredibly smart and just coming together to work on things together. That was a huge draw for me. So the culture of MIT, the reach of MIT, the work they do in Africa was what really pulled me in. Also, the alumni network as well. So as I got to start meeting and talking to different people who went to MIT, I got to know of the phrase that was a Sloanie never lets another Sloanie fail. And MIT folks take this very seriously. So I'd reach out to people who were in, different levels of leadership positions in different organizations that I was interested in while I was recruiting, and they went to MIT. As soon as they saw the at mit.edu, I usually would get a response. Because once again, it's like, hey, this person went to Sloan. How can I help? What can I do? So just all those factors were very instrumental in drawing me in and ultimately making me choose to attend MIT.
Thank you all for sharing. I know one common thing that we've heard within these particular responses is the community at Sloan and how big how big that is here at our particular institution. So could you all kind of dive into the community at Sloan and, talk about the things that you were involved in as a student and how you, have inclusivity as it pertains to the Black Business Student Association or the Africa Business Club? And anybody can take that one.
Okay, so I could start off. So I was a member of both organizations. And so essentially both organizations to me are kind of intertwined in the sense that we have the Africa Business Club, but a lot of the members are also part of the of BBSA. And so we had, just different meetings, but most importantly, I think what I got out of it was really the community. So meeting people from, different backgrounds, like technical backgrounds, but then you share the same, life experiences and things like that. And then you guys all come together as a community and like really helping each other. It could be anything. It could be in recruiting. It could be assignments, what classes to take. From the people, another resource that I found were from the second years when I was a first year. What classes did you guys take? What do old exams look like? Can you help me with this? How did like past questions. I'm struggling in this class. I need some help. Can you tutor me? Can you help me? And they were usually very, very helpful, like instrumental in me, like, passing classes. And I mentioned I was a career switcher. So leaning heavily on people who had finance experience to talk about like the experiences in recruiting. What do I need to know? Things like that. So those were very, very instrumental and helpful in me ultimately achieving my goals. And then once I became a second year, I was also able to try to help out with the first years as well. So really the culture of giving back is also something that is very strong in the MIT community, in the MIT Black or diverse community.
Yeah, just to follow up to what Namdi was saying, I was on the exec board of the BBSA, and so I think being a part of that community, especially from a leadership position, I think it was really special to be with the other exec board members and to try to figure out like how we could create events and opportunities and things for the community, and just figuring out like what the community needs, how we can, especially I think like you were saying, that first year, second year relationship is really important. And so like, okay, how can we, once you become second year, it happens so fast, but you're like, okay, how can I give back and support the first years? What resources that can we, put together to make sure that they're well supported? And so I thought it was a really special experience for me. And I think being a part, even as an LGO, I never felt like I wasn't a part of the MBA community. I was, just a member as anyone else, even though, I had my engineering experience as well. So it was a great experience being a part of the executive board and be able to have that leadership and be able to kind of pass the torch of building community for the students that were coming in.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. I think because I didn't have 2 years, right? I was, I think, hyper focused on the number of people that I wanted to meet, right? And so one of the ways that that was kind of extended outside of my particular program was to join, right? So I was also in the Black Business Student Association. I was a member of SWIM, and then I was also very focused, right, on this pivot. So basically every mobility club you can imagine, I was on the leadership team for the Space Club and the Automotive Club, and yeah, I think those are all the groups. Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. There's a wide range of options for students to be involved in while they're on campus. So there's over 80 plus clubs at Sloan. There are some affinity and identity groups that we mentioned before with our Africa Business Club, our Sloan Women in Management, or BBSA. But also there's some industry specific clubs as well. So if you have a specific area of interest, there is a club here for you. And if we don't have it, you can go to our Sloan Center to be able to create a club here as well. So there's a lot of community built in within our particular program to ensure that students have support as they're navigating the social aspects of school versus the academic. So that's a great pivot for our next question that I have. So more so focusing on the curriculum. So within these three different programs, the curriculum looks extremely different. So can you all talk about, the curriculum at Sloan and how it was built for you, and talk about the flexibility that it offered as it pertains to the MBA program and the Sloan Fellows? I know, Kaya, the LGO program wasn't as flexible because given that you have to have 2 degrees, but can you just kind of talk about ways that the classes that you've taken and how you were able to kind of explore while you were at Sloan?
Okay, so I could kick us off again. So for me, the curriculum was the MIT curriculum was something that I found attractive because essentially you have your first semester, you have your 4 classes that you take your first semester, and after that, the world is your oyster. So you build your own experience. And so for me, coming from an engineering background, a lot of the classes I took were all like brand new to me, like taking like econ, finance, but I was hyper focused on, I knew I wanted to do a career switch into finance. And so a lot of the classes I took were finance related classes. And what I really liked about the MIT curriculum, the MIT curriculum and classes was compared to like other schools, other business schools, a lot of the MIT folks were people who were like me, like we're all career switchers. So a lot of the classes, like these are finance professors who are like world-renowned finance professors, but they're more than happy to break it down for you, where there's no question, literally no question is a dumb question. And even if you feel like it's a dumb question and you ask it, once again, the people at MIT are so low ego, like no one is judging you, no one is like, oh my God, that was such a stupid question or anything like that. So that was I was able to get very comfortable in classes where I built my own my own experience was focused mainly on taking heavy finance classes. However, MIT is also a huge entrepreneurship hub, and the entrepreneurial spirit is very, very big at MIT. So there are lots of classes and labs and things that you can take as well to be able to grow in that area. So I took some as well. Also, where for one of the classes that I took, you have a real life, like real world problem. So one of the classes I took was we had a project where we had to work with AB InBev, which is one of the biggest beverage manufacturers in the world. And we had a real project where they had a real business problem in for their South America operations. And so we worked on it during the semester, and then during our break, we actually got to travel to Mexico City and spend 3 weeks in Mexico City, where we were working on real life problems, meeting with their senior leadership in South America, learning what their issues were and coming up with solutions for the issues that they were having. So these are like real world challenges or real world problems that we got to work on and solve through classes at MIT. So that to me was and something that was very attractive when I was going through the application process as well.
Thank you for sharing. I know experiential learning is really big here at Sloan, especially the action learning labs that we have, but also the opportunity to kind of get in the weeds and be able to actually experience it in real time. So Morgan or Kaya, did you all want to share about the curriculum that you all experienced?
Sure. So I think many similarities, but some differences, right? So when, you know, it says that the program is a year, it is literally 365 days. I mean, people were coming, and right, it's just as international. So people were coming, you know, just before Memorial Day weekend. That's the last weekend in May, for those of you not familiar. Probably still finishing their jobs through June 15th, right? So it was very, very tight. And another, I think, unique part of the program is that it is skewing differently now, but it has historically been the case that for many of the executive programs, the students are sponsored, which means that while we do have a lot of flexibility, the people that are really going back to their employers, probably not in the same roles, but at least going back to their employers, there's an expectation that they have a certain type of training, right? I was not in that camp, so I had a lot of freedom. And what that meant then was our core, so summer we're basically by ourselves, although we started to notice that there were LGOs in the hall. And so it's very quiet. And then you kind of hit the rest of the campus return in the fall, right? So that's a major core. We're going through kind of 2 terms in the span, right? Because we have basically, if you think of it as a quarter system, we split our summer in half. So it is very intense. That first summer is our core. We have 8 classes that we're taking. And then come fall and spring, there are really only 2 requirements where we're all together. And otherwise you have your pick. You know, because I was kind of pivoting, right? So unique in that I was not sponsored, and unique in that I was trying to pivot in 365 days. It kind of made life a nightmare, but it was worth it, right? So, you know, usually you would do that, right, by not just taking the classes, but starting to have some of the experiential learning, maybe even an internship to kind of get some experience on your resume to prepare you for those conversations with employers. I didn't have that luxury of time, but Sloan offers kind of the ability to do independent studies. And so it was vis-a-vis that I negotiated an internship, or consulting, it was really, with Mercedes, which again came through faculty and allowed me to get some like real experience to say like, okay, this is how I'm thinking about these problems. I'm starting to understand the industry. I have the experience now. And so I was in a better position, right, when it came time for recruiting to talk about that. And so that was critical, right, for me to have that independent study. Many of the kind of transportation and mobility related courses were outside of Sloan. So I loved that I had enough time and flexibility to venture into some of the other departments. And then I again, I was there for a year. I was very committed to meeting as many people as possible and getting as much you know, of a spectrum of training as possible. So I also took classes at Harvard. And that kind of rounded out kind of what I couldn't find at Sloan or elsewhere at MIT. I was able to take at Harvard. And so happy to talk about that commute. It's an interesting one in the winter, but it was worth it.
Yeah, and I can share a bit. I think the Sloan Fellows and LGO program has some similarities in terms of that schedule. So we start in the summer as well. And so we had 8 courses over that summer. And so we kind of had like 2 core semesters. 1 core semester during the summer where we're doing engineering and some business courses, but it's more like an engineering kind of core during that summer. And then during the fall, of course, we have the core with the rest of the MBAs, which is focused on those main business experiences. I think too, with the LGO program, there is still flexibility, although like you have to take your engineering courses simultaneously with your MBA courses. So it is a mix, but you still have the freedom to decide like what your electives are. And so I was able to actually do the sustainability certificate during my time. And so I did the sustainability business lab, which is the action learning lab, which was a great experience. Got to work with a company there on a sustainability project. And so you still in the LGO program get the freedom, same freedom and flexibility to take any electives that you're truly really interested in.
Thank you all for sharing. And something that we get in the admissions office from prospective students is the fact that there are certificate programs affiliated with the MBA and the LGO program, as well as Sloan Fellows. Did you all have any experience with certificate programs while you were here? And if so, could you all share which program you participated in?
Yeah, I can start there. So the sustainability certificate is what I chose to pursue, and that's through the MIT Sloan Sustainability Initiative. And that was a great experience for me. I think sustainability is something I've always been really interested in. And one of the reasons why I also decided to go to grad school was to kind of learn more about that space. And so through the Sustainability Initiative, they really kind of just give you a really well-rounded training of understanding sustainability from a business perspective, from a societal perspective, and also just how you can solve real problems in the space through the business lens. And you do this through coursework. You are required to do action learning lab as well, so you get that actual practical experience of doing a sustainability project with a company. But then you also get the community aspect. So the other folks who are doing the sustainability certificate, you build community with them as well. And that for me was a big part of it, because you learn from each other. Everyone's coming from different angles. There are folks who are interested in energy. There are folks who are interested in food. There's folks who are interested in CPG, and like across this, just across every kind of sustainability angle you can think of. And so it's just a great melding of minds of folks who are passionate about something. And so I think that's what's cool about the certificate programs, is you have a group of people who are interested or passionate about a topic, but they're all coming from it at different angles. So I really appreciated that.
So I will actually add something. So while I personally did not get a certificate, what I do know about MIT is MIT is one of the only programs that, like, I think Kaya has the sustainability certificate, and the MIT sustainability certificate is one of the only certificates that is actually recognized like industry-wide. Like no matter what industry you're going into, if you mention you have a sustainability certificate. A lot of different organizations have their own sustainability like tracks. So like say, I don't know if you worked at GE, for example, they have like some sustainability training that you can do at GE. However, if you get an MIT one, it's usually industry, it's recognized industry-wide. Just wanted to add that.
Awesome. So we've talked about the curriculum, we've talked about your paths to MIT Sloan. So now we're going to talk about ways that you can leverage the alumni community. So could you all share what your experience has been like as an alum, but also while you were in the program, what ways did you leverage the alumni community, and maybe as it pertains to internships, or maybe as it pertains to just, just brainstorm sessions, or ways that you were able to have post-graduation success. So just kind of talk about the ways that you leverage the alumni network.
I can start. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, from the moment, so our orientation is in April before we start. From that moment, we are meant to be recruiting and developing a career plan, right? So it's really from that moment that we already meet kind of the outgoing cohort, and whoever stays in the area, because many people end up staying right in Cambridge or the greater Boston area. So already I felt like I was walking into like a network that was much larger than my class. And that didn't stop, right? So, as I spent more time and, spent time with the career advisor, spent time with people on campus, was like always connected with, classes further and further out. So that was a constant. I mean, I think there probably, other than the holidays, there wasn't a week where I wasn't talking to some alum to understand how, why, what, right, did you do to like turn this experience into something that worked for you. So I think that was just very much a part of the ethos, right? I think it's, and I think that's important, actually. I think, while it was MIT or nothing for me, because I also understand that like business works because of the network, I was worried about the size of MIT. That being said, the size is an active size, right? So it's almost more meaningful, because I think the way that people show up, what is the slogan? There's an actual slogan that's, I think,
It's about Sloanie stepping Sloanies?
No, well, for us though.
Okay.
Like no fellow left behind is what is what our slogan is, and it rings true through and through. And so from just feeling like people had my back in terms of like how I should spend my time at Sloan, how I should start thinking about what I'm going to do after Sloan. It was palpable, right? So I was not walking only into an immediate community, right, of 115 people. I was already walking out into the world with like MIT at my side. And a very, very real example of this is, so when I took this current role, I ended up moving to a new place. I am now in Michigan, and I knew no one. So I was like, okay, I know my colleague. I mean, there's a big Ford presence. Many of the Fords also went to Sloan, right? So there's lots of connections there already, but it was the how I ended up finding a home, how I ended up finding like all of my like healthcare needs and social needs, and just like even where to, where's my local post office, was because I was literally hosted by a Sloan fellow who did not know me, off of a connection, right? So immediately just opened his home to me, allowed me to spend weekends there as I was like commuting back and forth between New York and Michigan, trying to make this move real. I knew nothing of this person before an email interaction, and like just, I mean, felt safe, felt like we had known each other forever. But and now, the kind of passing it down is like, I am meant to recruit more people to Detroit. So, I think it is not, just words. It really is action. It's really the mind and hand thing that MIT brings to life. And I can tell you it's real in so many ways.
Yeah, I can chime in terms of the alumni. I think for me, I pursued consulting after graduating Sloan, and definitely relied on alum there as well. So like hearing what their experience was, doing practice case interviews, and really, folks are willing to take their time out of their busy schedules to do a case interview. And so that I really appreciate it. And I think oftentimes folks are just willing to take time for a conversation. And I think a lot of us are talking about career switching. And so like that was a career switch for me. And so people are always willing to just chat with you about kind of what their career currently is, and give you perspective of like, how you could potentially break in. And so I just think that alum are very approachable for Sloan. And I can't speak to obviously any other programs, but I really appreciated that. And I felt that I never really felt like I couldn't just reach out to someone and say like, hey, like I'm at Sloan as well, and see that you graduated, even if they graduated 10 years ago or something, folks are willing to connect with you.
Rounding off, echo everything Morgan and Kai have said. For me, I really leveraged the alum network during my recruiting journey. So it was really like finding, like, I would find a company that I was interested in, and I'd find an alum in the company, and I'd just reach out, just be like, hey, I'm trying to make this switch from engineering into this. I noticed you're at this company. Can you spend 15 minutes of your time? And usually response like, once they see the MIT.edu, it's like, what can I do for you? Like, how can I help? So it's like, I'm trying to do this. Okay, well, I mean, my company's not hiring right now, but I know someone else who is. And then you just start to branch out, and your network just continues to grow and go from there. So I can't speak highly enough of the MIT alumni network, and just their willingness to help. And so once you then become an alum, you're also willing to, because you know what the expectation is now, and you know what the people who went before you have done. And so now there's that expectation on you as well. So for me personally, once again see at MIT.edu, always happy to help. My phone line is always open, willing to always take 15 minutes of my time to help out another Sloanie.
Awesome. That's great. And I know with our paying it forward nature here at Sloan, could you all kind of share some additional information as it pertains to like generating more representation of the Black and African American community at Sloan, and how it extends not just within the MBA program, but out to all of our programs? So just talk about ways that we're, advocating for more representation within our program. Could you highlight any mentorship programs that we have in an active state here at Sloan?
So I could start since I left off last time. So while I was at MIT, and even now to a certain extent, what as a member of both BBSA um, and ABC, both organizations had buddy programs and buddy systems. So what that means is for folks who are applying to the programs, they could reach out to the leadership of both of both clubs and say, hey, I'm very interested in learning about this. Can I be connected to someone who's like, a current student, who is willing to like listen to my story, help me with like interviews, help me with my application, things like that. And so that was very helpful for me coming in, like, because when I was coming in, I didn't know about this. But once I got in, I made it like, okay, hey, this is something we have to do because we need to increase our representation. So usually, like, there would be different rounds. Obviously, like you have, round one, round two, round three, and so every round, or in each round, take a few prospective candidates and just kind of, talk them through my experience, listen to their story, help them refine their story, things like that. And I wasn't the only one doing it. Like there were multiple. Like I think um, and it wasn't just even the Black community, all the communities of color, the Latinx community, the South Asian community, everybody had something similar. And so once again, but it just goes back to the spirit at Sloan of giving back. So that was the thing, like, so just mentorship of like prospective candidates. And as a second year, also giving back to the first years as well, making sure, everyone is good, no one is struggling in classes, what do you need, things like that.
Morgan, Kai, anything else you wanted to add to that?
I think that the buddy program definitely was probably the first thing that came to mind there. I think that there's also oftentimes informal mentorship that happens a lot, so it doesn't always have to be through formal programs. But for the LGO program specifically, there is a mentor program where you get matched with an alum, and they did really try to emphasize for the women and diverse students who are part of the LGO program, trying to match with LGO alum in that same area. And so there is that as well.
Awesome. So I see we're about at 7:45 Eastern time. So I want to give us an opportunity to be able to pivot to, some questions from our audience that came in the Q&A. So we do have a few that came in. One that I want to highlight is specifically about the Black experience in the greater Boston area. So could you all kind of share like what your experience was like on and off campus as somebody that may have migrated to the Boston area, whether it's for graduate school or somebody that was there maybe for undergrad. Can you all talk about the experience for a Black person within the greater Boston area and ways that you found community at Sloan, but also outside of Sloan?
I can speak to that. So given that I'm from New York, I think New York and Boston already have their rivalries. And so I didn't know much about Boston, and I had heard similar things in terms of it being potentially unwelcoming. But fortunately, that was not my experience. I think Boston is much more diverse than people give credit to it. And so I think exploring the different communities kind of outside of Cambridge, going to Roxbury, Dorchester, having some Haitian food, and just getting outside of the kind of Cambridge bubble is really important. And I think you'd be surprised at how diverse it actually is, much more than I think people give it credit for.
Oh, sorry, Morgan, you go.
Not much more to add. I mean, I think honestly, it's what you make it, right? I just, if you haven't moved a lot, it will always be a shock. I think if you've moved a lot, I think the pains of like, what does it take to like find your necessities? What does it take to find a broader community? I think to the point of the bubble, like it works for and against you. I think you don't have to experience greater Boston if you don't want to. In some ways you are protected as a student. But if you are interested in it, I think there's a lot to learn and it has a lot to offer, right? It is one of the major US cities. You know, I kept like my gym membership that I had at home. So like, then I had like a whole gym crew that I was meeting in Somerville. It's a place of like, this is probably not even right anymore, but when I was in undergrad, it like had at least 27 universities just near city center, right? And so, you know, in terms of just like the population of people that are, you know, are probably around your age, certainly intellectual in nature, and probably also transient. So we're like are trying to figure out like, how do I navigate this? Like you're not alone in that, right? So both within MIT and I think at large, there's just a broader student and professional population of color and not, right, that's accessible to you. If you love sports, I mean, it's again, if it's as a major city, it has things that will bring people together, like sports, like music, right, like the arts. I definitely recommend going to the museum. They have like an after dark thing, you know, once a month, which is like akin to like the New York like culture that I loved. So like I sought those things. I was also partial to New York, so like, you know, the food is the food, but it's survivable. You're there for a period of time.
Rounding us off. So for me, I spent most of my time in Cambridge because I mean school was in Cambridge and there's a lot of stuff to do in Cambridge. But post business school, I've stayed in the Boston area, and like I think Kaya mentioned this earlier, like everyone has like, you know, prior to moving here, I'd always heard of Boston not being as welcoming as, you know, as it can be. First off, like Cambridge is the total like opposite of what I was expecting. Like just once I got there, just the diversity in Cambridge is outstanding. You meet people from every background you can think of. And I think Morgan also mentioned this where there are so many schools in the Boston area where even expanding out of Cambridge, you're still meeting a lot of like younger, like-minded individuals who are here, you know, to get an education or early in their career. And so it's easy to network and really build a network from that. So I will say that about the Boston area.
Great. And as somebody that migrated here from the South, coming here from Florida about 2.5 years ago, it was a culture shock for me, but being able to come here with a significant other was a huge help for me. I know everybody doesn't have that luxury, but also being a part of, you know, a fraternity, that also was a big help, being able to kind of leverage that particular community. So there's a lot of ways that students can get connected. They have things that they're affiliated with. Also, one thing about Boston, I think that's, you know, relatively unknown is the fact that there is a very large melting pot here as it pertains to different, you know, cultures. So when I was transitioning here, I didn't know that we had such a large Haitian population or a large Cape Verdean population. Being able to find those particular communities within Boston, like Kaya mentioned, in terms of, you know, Roxbury and Dorchester, being able to have these different pockets where you can kind of find a sense of home or a sense of comfort. Also, Boston has a very rich Black history here as well. So being able to, you know, to tap into, you know, where Martin Luther King went to school, or being able to, you know, have the Black Heritage Trail within the area. But there's a lot of Black history here that I don't think people really know about. And the country was, you know, technically built on the backs of Black people. So we have a strong DNA within the city of Boston. So I want to be able to have students tap into that versus looking at it from, you know, a hesitation perspective or maybe from a deficit perspective. So there's a lot that Boston has to offer. And we also mentioned ways that we have integrated culture within the program. So one thing that we do within the Sloan program is have Course 15 dinners, where students are actually going out in the community and having dinners, not just with Sloan students, but students from all across MIT. So you're able to kind of build those networks. So the best way to kind of have those conversations is over a good meal of food. And our student life office does a great job of being able to kind of find hidden gems within the Boston area that people find really comforting, and being able to have that community support. So I want people to, you know, feel empowered to, you know, consider Sloan as an option, and don't, you know, look at Boston as almost a negative aspect. Being able to say, okay, what is Boston doing to be able to attract me within the program? And I think having those small pockets of communities will be helpful. And I think we need to do a better job of amplifying those voices within the greater Boston area. So I, know we're getting close to time, but I want to be able to transition to our next process. So I want to give a action item for our panelists, something to think about as we're going through these next slides. So if you all were to give a piece of advice to prospective students as they're going through this process, just, you'll just kind of think about that for now, but I'll come back to you all to answer that particular question. Sound good? Awesome. So I want to highlight the upcoming application deadlines that we have for a variety of programs. Our applications are now live, and you can see those corresponding dates here. As a token of our appreciation tonight, we will provide all attendees with an application fee waiver. So if you're interested in one of these 3 programs that were mentioned tonight, we will apply that particular email that you use for this particular session and apply that for your particular application. If you don't see it when you're applying, let us know. We'll be able to add that for you so you don't have to worry about that application fee. If you are interested in learning about more diverse views at MIT Sloan, we have a host of other events that'll be throughout this semester, throughout this month. We'll also have our visit days that are kicking off later this month as well. We will have our diversity visit day next month. So if you all are interested in coming to the Cambridge area, being able to experience what it's like to be in a Sloan class, interact with our Black Business Student Association, our Hispanic Business Club, and our Africa Business Club, we definitely encourage you to make the trip if you can. That visit day is a great sense of confirmation for a lot of people that, see Sloan as an option, but sitting in on the class does hit different in a way, being able to kind of say, okay, I can see myself here as somebody that may be from a technical background or from a non-traditional background. We want to be able to have that opportunity for students to be able to have that sense of comfort. And then the last thing I want to talk about is ways that you can learn more about diversity and inclusion here at MIT Sloan and our Black business student community. You can visit their websites here, and we will be forwarding the information from tonight's session about the leadership. So feel free to reach out to them. I know we mentioned tonight the buddy program, so that's a great resource for students that are going through the prospective application phase to be able to reach out to our first year and second year students to talk about ways that they can make a more competitive application as they're going through the particular process. So I want to come back to our panelists to wrap up for tonight's session. So just share a piece of advice that you would give to a prospective Black applicant as they're going through this particular process.
I can start. I think the number one thing that's important in the application process is to really bring your whole self to your application. And I really mean that. I think that that's something that Sloan admissions really takes into consideration. And they put a lot of work into building a really unique and diverse class. And the experience of going to Sloan, like I've met people from just so many different walks of life that I'd never experienced before. Even being from New York, where, I've met so many people from different places. It wasn't until Sloan where I think I just learned so much just because of how much effort they put into really building a unique and diverse class. And the only way they can do that is if they know like the true personality and experience of the people applying. And so I would say really bring your whole self, especially that video component, bring your whole true self, your personality to that, and don't be afraid to bring yourself in that application.
Okay, I could jump in. My advice is apply, because I know a lot of different people who it's MIT, you're very intimidated by the name, you're intimidated. And then you look at all the different scores, you look at, the GPA requirements, you look at all these things, and then it's very easy to get in your own head and rule yourself out before anybody has a chance to rule you out. So if you don't apply, or if you decide to rule yourself out, you're never even going to give the admissions panel a chance to even review your application. And so my piece of advice is put your best foot forward. Lean in strongly, lean in heavily on like the different buddy programs and these type of events where you get to hear from different people. Lean into those experiences, so that way you can get to know, have some connection with the institution. And when you're applying, you're able to put your best foot forward.
So I think my advice is probably a combination of the two, but I think it's to know what you want to get out of the program. And maybe that's true of any business school, but I think having that focus means that you will be very clear about then what at Sloan is available to help you achieve that, and what experience you bear that tells that story, right? And I think once you package that, that becomes just your compass, right? Through the admissions process and even through the program. I mean, even if you're here for the longest program, I mean, really being at Sloan is like being a kid in a candy store. Time could fly by and you could not do anything, right? And so I think it's just so important that you get out of this experience, not only that you get in, right, but that you get out of this experience what you are so strongly seeking right now. And that can only be true the clearer you are. And I'm not saying you need to know your next title or your next role or your next company, but I am saying you need to be very clear about what it is you want out of this, right? What it is for yourself, or what it is for your community, what it is for your career, right? Like what, if it's a skill set based thing, whatever it is, let that be your, right, your guide, tell your story around that, figure out what at Sloan complements that and what you can do to, again, contribute to that community and achieve that at the same time.